Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together. Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Paul Lopez.
And I'm Isana Cayetano. Good morning.
And it's Monday morning. It's actually the first Monday in February,
Yes.
Sunny. The
It is
year
the
of
3rd
January.
of February.
The
Yes.
year of January has officially concluded. I guess I could officially say Happy New Year's once again, because January has been a long month. But yes, January is over. It's the 3rd of February, and we are off to a start. In fact, I feel like January has been quite eventful in many ways, not only in Belize, but across the region and internationally as well. And we do have a great deal of topics to discuss on our What's Buzzing before we jump into our Eye on the News, as we do here every Monday morning. So why not get right into our What's Buzzing for this morning, Isani?
So both of our What's Buzzing topics this morning are taken from the international scene.
Yes.
If we are to start with the more heavier stuff, in a manner of speaking, the announcement of tariffs to be levied by the United States on its North American neighbors, both south of the US, namely Mexico, and north of the US, Canada. And the responses that the announcements have garnered.
Yeah.
So for those who may not know or may not necessarily have been following these developments, the Trump administration, which is still very new, it's only a few weeks in, came in with all of these sweeping changes, including tariffs to be levied on its next door neighbors. This has to do with imports and the movement of goods and services and what have you. And if we're to discuss what happened in Canada in terms of the immediate response to this announcement, you would recall that the Prime Minister, outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he had tendered his resignation, but in his final days, he's still standing up against this move made by the Trump administration. You would also recall that Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is still also fairly new in her leadership of that country, a few months in actually. And she too has taken a firm position in response to the announcement, as we've mentioned. And it's interesting from a global perspective how other countries are looking at this. I know that China has been the United States' biggest supplier of manufactured items and what have you, but they have a strained love-hate relationship, if I could describe it as such. And so that too forms part of this equation if you're looking at it from a global perspective.
Indeed.
The Trump administration, this second time around, has come in with a lot of controversial positions, so to speak. And it's nothing new because this was said during a campaign period that he would do X, Y, and Z.
Basically following through.
And he's following through on those promises and statements, if I could describe it as such.
Yeah, so I question President Trump's rationale. I understand. He's trying to have these countries take accountability for their immigration policies, etc., etc.
Yeah.
However, what does an increase in tariff mean? It means higher consumer prices, especially for those in the U.S. Because if you put a 25% tariff on me as the importer or the exporter of that country, at the end of the day, as the big company, I won't necessarily take on that loss.
You won't absorb it. You'll pass it
on to the consumer. So then you have consumers who are in the U.S. who are already complaining about inflation and the high cost of goods and the high cost of living. They'll have to take that on. So that's definitely one thing to consider when you look at Belize and perhaps how Belizeans could be impacted by this. Well, first of all, one of the main things that's imported from Canada to the U.S. is oil, right? And it's crude oil. This is what then they use to make the gasoline. So wherever gasoline prices increase, the goods across the board increase, because now we're talking about gasoline to transport products from one state to the next, from one area to the next. And in Belize, we oftentimes buy a lot of stuff from the U.S. and it's transported from one state to the next before it's shipped out. Cost of those things might increase because of this high cost because of this tariff. So that's one thing that Belizeans have to consider when perhaps if it does come to pass that prices will increase in these areas. But how can Belize perhaps capitalize on this? If we are to capitalize, if there's an avenue for us to capitalize on this, let's look at the facts. If the data is to be believed, Belize exported some $57 million worth of produce to the U.S. in 2023. I don't have the data for 2024 yet, but our export to the U.S. has decreased significantly over the years. It has been on a decline. However, when you look at what Canada exports to the U.S., primarily one of the main products is beef in the agricultural industry. When you look at what Mexico exports to the U.S., it's primarily fruit and vegetables. So among them, tomato is on the top of the list. Pepper is also on the top of that list, within the top 3, top 4, except for automobile parts, which is also something you have to consider, because in Belize, we love to buy vehicles from the U.S., and though it's used, it may affect us in terms of the cost of those used vehicles as well. But isn't there an avenue with the already established trade agreements for us to say, all right, well, if there's a decrease because importers from the U.S. don't want to pay that tariff for beef in Canada, for example, is there a window for Belize to capitalize on that and find a way to export more cattle? It may cost us a lot more, but does it balance off?
Well, we go, as far as I'm aware, primarily through the Mexican market.
Right, we
so
go
a lot
through
of
the
the
Mexican
cattle
market.
and the beef and what have you moves
right
north.
So that may be something that you'll have to consider. And then tomatoes, we produce a lot of tomatoes in Belize. Pepper, we produce a lot of pepper in Belize as well. All I'm saying is perhaps there's an opportunity here for us to capitalize. While it may impact us on the back end in terms of like I say, as when America sneezes, Belize catches a cold, a flu, because now you're talking about as well China. We Belizeans, we buy a lot of stuff from companies online that actually manufacture and produce their stuff in China, and so we are not in the clear one bit because the U.S. decided to impose an increased tariff on Mexico, China, and Canada.
It's an interesting conversation to have, and we'll be looking at the developments closely as the days go by. Okay, so the other what's buzzing topic, I think, is equally trending in terms of persons who sat in front of their televisions or their devices last night and followed the Grammy Awards. The Grammys is the biggest stage in music, in terms of Western music, if you want to describe it as such. And there were a number of big winners yesterday. Beyonce's Cowboy Carter won Country Album of the Year.
It's interesting.
Against the fact that many of her peers, quote unquote, in the country music scene completely shunned and decried her album as not country, or not country enough, or whatever the
In fact, she was basically, she expected, or her fans expected, that during the Country Music Awards, that she would be awarded.
And she got shut out. She wasn't even nominated.
Indeed. Yeah, and so now here she comes. Grammy, perhaps arguably one of the biggest stages in awards, where awards are concerned for creatives, and she wins the Best Country album. I'll tell you, interestingly, Spotify, I subscribe to Spotify, and they do these wrap-ups every year, right? And I was shocked to learn from Spotify that my #1 album for 2024 was actually Beyonce's country album that did last year, right? and then when I reflected back, I said, you know what? I listened to that album a heck of a lot of times, because it was so surprising for me to see Rihanna, to see Beyonce in this light, and the music was quality, was easy to take in as well.
She's a universal artist.
She is.
In the true sense. When you look at how she's able to shape-shift and take on various genres of music and still come out on top. Like if you look at Renaissance, which was house and dance, well, she's conquered R&B and what have you, right? And so yes, she's been able to present herself in a manner where she's not only a household name, but in terms of the number of awards she's racked up along the way is something serious. Now, for me, my topic of choice is Not Like Us.
Of course.
Winning Song of the Year and several other categories, right?
Sweeping the awards.
Why? It's because it's the first time in music history that this song has actually won an award. Not only for the directing of the video, but the song itself, right? And what's funny about this is that you would recall, perhaps it would have been like 2016 somewhere, when Drake and Meek Mill had their own tiff, and Drake's back-to-back was nominated for a Grammy. He never won. He lost out to Kendrick's All Right. But this time around, the shoe was on the other foot, where Kendrick's song was nominated and actually won a minimum of 2 times in terms of the categories that he was nominated for. And this is significant because for many of us who have been following the music scene in hip-hop primarily, this is the resurgence of the West Coast, right? I don't know if you've been following West Coast hip-hop over the past year, but they have been making a serious comeback, and I think this helps to solidify the fact that the West is back, right? But yes, so outside of these major wins, there are also the red carpet, right? We saw earlier all the shenanigans on the, on the red carpet.
Jaden, he shocked me with his castle head costume, or whatever you would call it. And then we saw quite an interesting presentation from Kanye West and Bianca. My understanding is they weren't invited to the Grammys. There are articles out there that said that they were escorted from the Grammys because they attended uninvited. And
there were articles that said they were not escorted.
Okay, all right. See, there you go. This all happened overnight. I was just trying to get my bearings together, get together with that one. And then for the Caribbean's also the main highlights for the Caribbean is the award that One Love received. So One Love received an award. That's a Bob Marley inspired movie, reggae inspired movie that received an award, I believe, for the soundtracks on there as well. And so some big awards coming out last night. I haven't seen exactly where other Caribbean artists stood in terms of their Grammy awards. I know that Vybz Kartel was in attendance as well at the awards. For him, I believe it's a big deal just to see him there after 13 years in prison. I'm just happy, almost surprised about the fact that he could already travel to the U.S. He's been doing so for some months, but I think to see him at the Grammys solidified the fact that, well, he's a free man. and he's allowed to enter the U.S. again. And just to be there, I'm sure for him and his family and supporters was a big deal to see.
Excellent. So yes, those are topics that are buzzing, but we do have other conversations that are equally heavy on the local front. So we'll take this opportunity now to shift to the Eye on the News. Paul, there were a number of major developments on Friday.
Yeah.
For the purpose of our Eye on the News segment and given our time constraint, we'll stick to that incident that happened at the Marion Jones on Friday night. So there was a football match that was organized, and it being Friday, a lot of people are out and about. Some people were out on the city doing other social activities. Others went to the Marion Jones to spectate. And in the mix of it all, there was an all-out brawl that led to shots being fired, persons being injured, and it led to, at this point, at least one fatality. This incident has raised a number of questions, and we'll attempt to dive into it later on in our news at 6 p.m. However, so our cameraman, George Tillett, was in attendance because he was shooting for the Sports Monday today. I
was supposed to be there as well, but I'd informed him from earlier that, hey, I have some responsibilities at home and I can't make it. He said, no worries. So yes, he was there shooting and he got it live and direct.
So just to give a little bit of a background so we understand before we get into what actually transpired there. So you had members of two rival groups at the Marion Jones Sporting Complex to watch this football game. And so from what I've been reliably informed, earlier that night, the so-called leaders of these respective groups were seen together in the Kings Park area purchasing drinks and what have you. Now, it wouldn't have been the first time that they all got together. I've seen pictures. We know that, you know, they've had some kind of a relationship, if I could describe it as such. What took place when they got back to the Marion Jones, from what I'm being able to understand from police insiders, there was an incident where the brother of Brandon Baptist, who is now deceased, got into an issue with some of the young men from the Lake Independence area, right? And it's not to necessarily validate their existence as such, but we need to be real. So you have the BLC gang and you have the PIV gang who are both in attendance. And so I'm understanding that there was an issue between the BLC group that was in the lower bleachers and the PIV group that were in the upper bleachers. Now, these groups, they both originate and for the most part are members of the Lake Independence community. And so in the mix of this whole scuffle, a firearm was produced, multiple shots were fired. Brandon Baptist and two other persons were shot. Brandon succumbed. My understanding is that he was thrown over the railing of the bleachers and he fell to his death by breaking his neck. Now, I can tell you as well that in the immediate aftermath of this incident on Friday night, my neighborhood, the Lake Independence neighborhood, has seen an uptick in police presence, right, to perhaps try to prevent any retaliation. Again, these two groups are sharing the same space, so to speak. The Lake Independence community, big as it is, these two groups are sharing that community, and it's like oil and water. Despite all the attempts that are put in place to try to mediate, to try to bring some kind of peace or harmony, this is a very volatile one. And so later on today, there will be a press brief where the Commissioner of Police will be present to give comment on this. We'll also seek to get word from the head of the Leadership Intervention Unit, because at the same time, they have also been instrumental in working with these groups. Now, Brandon Baptist, we've covered him significantly and extensively in our newscast for various reasons. From him being charged with murder several years back, to the most recent one where he was working with young men in the neighborhood and teaching them a trade. I think it was electrical engineering or what have you, to try to get them to steer clear away from gang activity and gang life.
Correct.
So we've covered a range of stories that involve Brandon Baptist in various capacities, right? And we've also similarly covered a number of stories that involved his rivals.
Yeah.
So these are prominent groups that we've covered for various reasons. And of course, in the middle of it all is the LIU that's trying to, broker some kind of peace or some kind of, armistice, if we could describe it as such, between the two warring groups.
And the LIU, for the most part, I think they've been doing an excellent job in their attempts because, for example, in my neighborhood in Port, that Jane Usher area, when you look at a lot of these young men these days, for most days, they're not sitting around idly. They're either cutting the drains or cleaning the drains or cutting the bush along the highway and stuff like that. So they're employed to an extent, and I understand this is through the LIU. One of the concerns coming out of Friday night's game has to do with security. And the level of security that was implemented that night. My understanding is that 4 police officers were hired to work the game. 4 police officers for a large stadium such as the Marion Jones Sporting Complex. An account I received was that when one person, in fact our cameraman, arrived at the event for the first game, because this is the second game, there's 2 games played. The Baptist brothers, they played in the first game. So they would have been there hanging around to see the result or the outcome of the second game, because this is the semifinals, to see who they would go against in the finals, which was scheduled for this weekend, this Friday night. And so my understanding is that the crowd or the turnout was not expected in terms of the large turnout of people. However, it speaks to the traction that this specific tournament has built. So you have a large turnout that only 4 police officers, which is insufficient, has to manage in terms of crowd management and safety and stuff like that. But like I said, my cameraman had informed me that when he arrived, there was no security at the gate. And I don't know if because they were patrolling or whatever, but only 4 police officers. Listen, I understand the heart of this tournament. It's the first division tournament. This is below the Premier League, right? These first division tournaments bring together communities from within districts. So in Belmopan, you have a first division. In Cayo, I understand you have a first division. In Belize City, you have a first division, and in different parts of the country. But these first division tournaments, based on where they're established, are made up of members of the community from within the district or within those areas. So you won't find that in Belmopan's first division, you'll have this kind of rift, or you'll have these kinds of incidents, because for the most part, communities in Belmopan and the periphery, they are not necessarily subjected to or have this issue, gang violence and crime and stuff like that. So what we see playing out here is just part and parcel of the social issues, the social ills being brought into the sports arena because of the communities that are involved. So it's just a reflection of the communities that are involved.
In this case, it's one community but it's divided along color lines based on these respective
Right,
groups.
but I mean, it could happen to within any community within this first division, because there's a lot of different factions, and it's just the makeup of it, right? And the challenge here is that it's being brought into the sporting arena. And
So the FFB has issued a statement regarding, well, in the wake of this incident, and so they have spoken. Well, the head of the Football Federation of Belize has spoken with respect of what took place there, and of course the fact that there exist programs to try to keep young men from becoming members of gangs and what have you. And in a sense, as unfortunate as this incident has been, it flies in the face of those initiatives.
Right.
But it shouldn't be that they give up on working with these at-risk youths.
And that's one of the questions that was raised immediately after the event. Should we allow communities or members of gangs, like, first of all, it's kind of unavoidable, but should we avoid members of gangs to participate in sporting events and sporting activities because of the trouble that follows them? I don't agree with that. I'll tell you up front, I don't agree with that, because if you try to sift, how do you even sift out who's a gang member, who's a part of this, in order to select a few from a community to play? And also, this is where the talent is. The talent comes from among these young men, the Baptist brothers, this one, that one. These are very multi-talented young men, right? And so when you put them out on that field, you really see their skills. And in many cases, they could go up against semi-pro players. It's just unfortunate, again, that the ills of their community, you see play out on the football field. Last thing on this for me is, it also boils down to sponsorship. Because my understanding is that the organizers of this event and these events, this one in particular, they came in earlier last year to add some structure to it, to show these guys from these different communities that we could actually establish something that is national, right? And of a class, of a certain class. However, sponsorship has been lacking. And because sponsorship has been lacking, they took shortcuts. They cut corners. The cost of security is high, and they cut corners in that area. And if there's anything I would blame them for, is cutting corners in that area, while they say
arguably
sponsorship.
The most important expense aside from securing the venue and all other logistics.
So as a result of that, Friday night's the second game didn't even finish. The second game was in the first half. That didn't even finish because they were taking a penalty shot, and it was during that penalty shot that the gunshots rang out. So that second game wasn't finished. A semi-pro game was supposed to be played yesterday between the Port of Belize FC and another team. I can't remember the name of the exact team. This is a higher level event. That was postponed as well. And there's no telling when the finals for the first division will take place. So all around, an event like this affects the sporting community across the board, but it brings some very important questions into the fray.
Suffice to say that the tension in the neighborhood is palpable.
That's true.
You could feel it hang in the air. And like I said, we'll see what the police department has to say later on today in terms of what measures will be put in place and how they go about levying charges on anyone who they find to be a part of what transpired on Friday night. The final point in the Eye on the News, and I'll make this brief, we're having a special sitting of the House of Representatives on Friday. And I'll be honest with you, Paul. We've tried to, on previous occasions, make predictions of when the elections will be called. We don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised that it's before or by Friday, right? We'll see. We'll see, and I'll leave that there.
A couple of colleagues and I, we actually made a bet we made a bet, I'll just put it like that. And my bet was that it would have been announced at the end of January. That time has passed. I thought the last week in January. And another one of my colleagues guessed the second week in February, lining up with 30 days before the 13th of March, as some people are suggesting. Now we're in between both of those weeks. And
I won't hazard a guess, but
yeah.
I won't be surprised that the announcement is made this week either.
Yes, indeed.
But yes,
indeed.
which will give us a 30-day window and so on and so forth. But yes, that does it for this morning's Iron News. Details of these stories and more you will be able to catch live on 5 at 6 p.m. or you can stream our content via Facebook or YouTube. That does it for the Iron News.
All right, so excellent conversations this morning in our What's Buzzing as well as our Iron News. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to jump into our eye-opener for this morning. And of course,
that's going to the weather.
Or we're going to go to the weather. All right, so we're going to jump into the weather to find out what today is going to look like. Is it going to be sunny? It's going to rain? Let's find out from our friends at the National Met Service.
A moderate east to northeasterly airflow prevails over the country. In the 24-hour forecast, skies will be sunny with some cloudy spells today and then cloudy tonight. Showers will be generally isolated during today, with a few more developing mostly over coastal and southern areas tonight. And then high temperatures will reach around 85 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 88 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and then 78 degrees Fahrenheit in the mountains. For tonight, low temperatures will reach around 77 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 72 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 66 degrees Fahrenheit in the hills. Winds over the open sea will be from the east to northeast at 5 to 15 knots, and sea conditions will be light chop to choppy, with low tides occurring at 7:27 this morning and 8:27 tonight, and then high tides at 1:25 this afternoon and 2:25 tomorrow morning, while the sun will rise at 10:05 this morning and then set at 11:03 tonight. Sunrise will be at 6:24 this morning and then sunset is at 5:49 this evening. And in the extended forecast, there will be cloudy spells with a few showers expected around the country on Tuesday and Tuesday night. And in the sarcasm update, impacts from sarcasm are expected to remain minimal during the next few days. This has been this morning's weather report from the National Meteorological Service.
Excellent. And so that's your weather update for this morning. May you plan your day accordingly and into your evening and tomorrow morning as well. So what we're going to do, Sunny, is we're going to get right into our show for this morning. We have an excellent lineup, I must say. In our first and second discussion, we'll have Honorable Tracy Panton joining us, and she'll be able to speak freely about the path the UDP must take to ensure unity, growth, and a future to success.
Our second and final conversation will be celebrating the skill of women physicians in Belize. This also promises to be an interesting conversation.
So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Honorable Tracy Panton. You don't want to go anywhere, stay tuned. We'll be right here.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Full-Tech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you've been waiting for. In this corner, we have the masters of limitless power and unbeatable connection. Pioneers of 4G LTE in Belize. It's the undefeated champion, Smart. And in the other corner, struggling to keep up, it's the other guy. Fight! Tired of getting blow after blow from a plan with the other guys? It's time to tap out and join the winning postpaid plan provider. Smart's postpaid plans are a total knockout to the competition, and they have once again powered up their postpaid plans. Sign up for one of Smart's boosted postpaid power plans today and experience the victory of superior service. Smart, bringing people together.
Unwrap the joy of crystal clear picture and sound from Iowa, the brand that offers you affordability and exceptional quality. Iowa has a wide range of exceptional products to choose from, such as TVs, speakers, headphones, home appliances, and much more at affordable prices that won't break the bank. Enhance your audio-visual entertainment experience with Iowa, and for your convenience, parts are readily available in country for hassle-free maintenance. You can find Iowa products at your local electronics store countrywide. Choose Iowa, the best in home entertainment and household appliances.
When we think of the economy, we often think of factories, markets, and technology. But one of the most crucial factors driving economic productivity is the health of a nation's workforce. Healthy individuals are more productive, take fewer sick days, and have a greater capacity to innovate. When people stay healthy, they contribute more effectively to the economy. Tune into the first episode of Pocket Plans with Rumil Arana on February 3rd, 2025.
Welcome back. This is our first conversation for this morning. We are joined by Honorable Tracy Panton, the Area Representative for the Alberts Division. Ms. Panton, good morning.
Good morning. It's so good to be here on a Monday morning.
Yes, on a Monday morning.
Starting our morning right, starting our week right.
Yes.
Certainly very saddened by the events on the weekend. I had a recent session with some young people in Albert, and one of the things they spoke to me about is engagement of young people, particularly in sports. And so when we have a sporting event that goes so wrong, it really underscores the importance of really trying to have the right security arrangements in place and creating an environment where our young people feel safe.
All right, since you're on that topic, because we have a list of questions to ask you on, of course, the internal struggles as well as policies and the upcoming general election. But since you're on that topic, what's your policy on sports and security in terms of creating safe spaces for our young people to be able to express themselves and their talents through sports?
Well, it's not only sports, right? The arts, entrepreneurship. These are some of the things that came out from our conversation. But citizen security continues to be a challenge in this country. And, I feel very strongly that there comes a time when we have to take a more national approach. Politics has polarized everything, including dealing with the situation of crime. I remember very early on in this administration, the opposition offered to be part of the solution, to be part of the think tank, if you will, so that we can have a more national approach to dealing, a bipartisan approach to dealing with these serious issues, these what I call wicked problems in our society, and that was ignored. But we really, really have to find opportunities where we create meaningful employment. We have the proper rehabilitation programs. We know LIU is doing some work there, and that we bring our young people into the conversation where it relates to matters for their own engagement. I understand, listening to your Eye on the News this morning, that part of the issue was having the appropriate security arrangements in place. And even the protocols are out there to ensure that, how did these weapons even get there? What protocols were there in terms of screening individuals coming in? How are we monitoring the movement of our gang leaders in this country? We know it's a problem. Those kinds of issues have to be addressed. Would
you continue funding the work of the LIU if you were to enter office?
I believe the LIU is doing some good work. I don't know that that's the only thing that should be done. And you know, we have a lot of splintering, a lot of little groups doing little things, and I think it's time for us to bring all these initiatives together in a more holistic approach. You know, we talk about wraparound services for social issues, and we need to have some kind of wraparound approach to how we address the issue of crime.
The state of crime and violence in this country has been something that perhaps from the 90s, successive governments have struggled with. They have not been able to bring it under control, notwithstanding various initiatives that have been put in place. You've had CYDP, you've had all of these other efforts to try to steer young men primarily away from street life and what have you. And if one were to do a review or an assessment from when gangs really took root in our society in the 90s, some people could argue that we really haven't gone much or done enough to be able to stem the growth and the criminality that comes out of gang involvement.
What's the root cause? Let's look at the root causes. The social framework of the family has been dismantled. We know the story. A lot of people migrated to the US for better jobs, to take care of children at home, left children with family members, grandparents who were not able to raise them the way a parent can. And then the issue of the economy, right? The issue of jobs. And when I say jobs, meaningful jobs that you can earn a decent living and you can provide for your family. I remember speaking to a young man once who was, you know, part of the criminal element, and he said to me, I'm the only boy in my family. My mom had 7 girls. I am the only boy, and I want my sisters to have an education. So I hit the streets so I could help my mom to provide for my sisters. And I can't tell you, Ms. Tracy, how proud I am when I see my sisters heading to work. But he had to make the sacrifice, or he felt he had to make the sacrifice because the opportunity was not there for his mom, who was at the time raising her daughters on her own. So these stories, you know, the family, looking at how we strengthen the family unit, how we support our communities, I think is critical in the approach that we must take in addressing the issue of crime and citizen security.
Yeah, the complaint has always been that the politicians come around and they only see a person's value in their vote, especially in these types of communities where these social ills exist to the extreme. We honestly don't know when the time for elections, and then afterwards we have to go bang down doors to try and get assistance. You have community organizations, small movements that complain bitterly that we're trying to do this and that for a community, but we're really not getting the support and the help we need. And I understand when you're a leader in a leadership position, there are bigger fish to fry, if you would, in terms of national issues, in terms of economic issues and trade deals, etc., etc. But the ills of the society reflects a lot on the nation.
I don't know that you can say that about all politicians, because you certainly can't say that about me. I have always maintained an open door policy in our constituency. You know, when I ran the first time in 2015, I was asked by a media house, what is it that you hope to achieve? And I said, to have a greater sense of community in the Albert constituency. And he scoffed at it. He laughed at it because he thought, you know, that's so frivolous. But for me, when you strengthen the community support, when you empower people in the community, when you give them opportunity to grow and to learn and to earn a living, these things trickle back down into the society. You know, Paul, I listen to the Prime Minister often when he does show up for an interview, and he keeps boasting about, you know, how well the economy is doing and tourism is growing and the agro-productive sector is growing and we're exporting to Mexico and all these wonderful things. It's not being felt by the average Belizean family. The struggles are real. And so
that's a sentiment that is shared pretty much across the board when you talk to Belizeans.
Absolutely. So what is it that we're going to do to ensure that there is a more even distribution of wealth? And this notion that both political organizations have been guilty of is that when the United Democratic Party is in power,
their people eat.
Their people eat. And when the People's United Party's administration is in power, the PUP eat. When is it that we're going to learn at this stage of, we're 43, that it is important that we have to ensure that we create an environment, an economic environment, where we can bring our best minds to the table, where we can bring our best talent to the table. It's not red and blue, but what are we going to do for Belize? Belize, and how are we going to support Belizeans irrespective of their political ideologies, irrespective of their religious beliefs, irrespective of their sexuality. You know, it has, the time has come, in my view, where we need to have, on many issues, a more nationalistic approach. And there are some issues that require bipartisan support if we're going to see the kind of growth and tap into the potential that we know we have.
It's interesting that you would speak of bipartisan support when you look at the current state of the United Democratic Party, which is fractured.
It is.
So in that particular context, you may not be seeing eye to eye with Shine, but collectively you both form the opposition. And so how do you then seek to work with the party in power if within your own party there's this growing division?
I want to be clear. Democracy is messy. And what has transpired in the United Democratic Party has been painful for many of us. But I make no apologies for the fact that there is a group of us who believe deeply in our democracy. And we cannot allow any sort of dictatorship approach, unilateral approach, authoritarian approach to take root in our political organizations, and certainly not in the United Democratic Party. That is where it starts. If we do not defend our democracy within, how are we going to be poised to defend the democracy of this country that we as Belizeans all feel very proud about, a peaceful democracy. That's how we describe ourselves, a peaceful democracy. Leadership, I think one of the defining things in leadership is that you have to listen to the voices of the people, and you have to respect the voices of the people, and you have to take into account the voices of the people. When you lead a political organization, it can't be your way or no way. That is not what our democracy was built on. It was built on diversity, it was built on inclusion, it was built in terms of a participatory approach so that we can build consensus and find the best solutions.
What is your primary charge or mandate as the person who is vying for leadership of this country going forward?
We have to address the situation I alluded to before, ensuring that the economy of this country works not for half of the population, not for red or for blue, not for men or for women, not for the old or the young, that we create the enabling environment so that we can become more productive as a country and that we can be more self-sufficient as a country. You know what's going to happen with these trade wars that's happening between the US, Canada, Mexico, and now China? Mm-hmm. Do you know what it's going to mean for countries like Belize? When the elephants fight, the ants get trampled, upon, yeah. Right? Cost of living is already through the roof. The inflation is wicked high already. As the Prime Minister says, we import our inflation. So we already know that tariffs are going to go up by 25%. What does that mean for countries like Belize? What does that mean for a regional approach or a regional response? How do we become more self-sufficient? Is by creating that enabling environment so that not only entrepreneurship, you know, who is going to be the breadbasket of this region? Belize is poised. Look at the amount of land we have. You know, Guyana is also poised in this region, but they are now moving into oil exploration. And so we must find ways to ensure there's meaningful engagement of all sectors of our economy, and also for the inclusion of all people. Our next election, maybe not so much this election, but the next election, the political landscape will change, because we're going to have... It has already been changing. It's changing. It's changing, but by 2030, it's going to be a different political landscape, and we must be prepared to meet the need of our young people. And I'm not talking about, just lip service. Mm-hmm. You know, having them meaningfully involved in the thinking process, in the decision process, so that we can find solutions that work for us.
Since we're on mandates and policies, what's your thoughts on the minimum wage? Currently it stands at $5. While it's an increase, there have been clamors for it to increase even more. Can Belizeans making that amount survive on a $5 minimum wage, in your view?
At this rate, as what we're seeing going on in global economy, it's going to be difficult. It's absolutely going to be difficult. You know, we moved from $3.30 to $5, but that was already absorbed by the high cost of inflation. And I predict that we're going to see, unless more countries come together and stand together on common policies to address what is happening in the United States of America, I foresee that countries like Belize is going to be the hardest hit. It's just like climate change. Countries like Belize get the hardest hit.
All things considered, would you venture to increase that?
I can't say that. I certainly we will have to find ways to ensure that we meet the growing concerns of our citizens where it relates to the cost of living, where it relates to inflation, where it relates to the high cost of fuel, where it relates to access to health care, access to higher education. You know what has happened, Paul? Our young people can't realize their aspirations in Belize. They go away, they seek scholarships, they go away to get higher education so that they can realize their aspirations. I envision a Belize where you can realize your aspirations here. Because we all say it's a wealthy country. We haven't tapped into our potential. We need to start looking at the potential of Belize and investing where it matters. Let me give you an example. Currently, we can't staff our regional hospitals. We can't provide basic medication in our referral hospital. But yet we're investing a huge amount of money in creating another hospital somewhere in the middle of Belmopan as a tertiary institution. We need to invest in our people, not only our infrastructure. What are we doing to provide more medical scholarships? What are we doing to train more nurses? We can't staff our current facilities. And so yes, a new modern building might be nice, but what is the more important and pressing need? I am telling you, the cost of health is escalating maybe faster than inflation. I can tell you that from personal experience. And the healthcare system is in such a shambles. If you don't know somebody who can call somebody who can call somebody, you're not going to get the kind of access and support that you need. Those things are the things that matter to the average Belizean family.
That speaks to a pressing need for healthcare reform.
Absolutely. We need, you know, under the United Democratic Party, there was a meaningful push for educational reform. And there was some undoing that. And that's another thing that happens in this country. When a new administration comes in, the work that has been done by a previous administration that has been good work gets put on the back burner or thrown out with the baby. No, we have to start laying foundations that we continue to build on and build on and build on. So there's definitely need.
A lack of political maturity on both sides, though, because for argument's sake, if Paul implements an initiative that clearly works, and I succeed Paul, I should be able to review the work that he has done, and even if I choose to rebrand it, the spirit of it remains the same in terms of the service being provided to the people. It is unfortunate that in this country, what Red has done, PUP undoes and presents their own thing. After 5 years, UDP comes back in, same cycle. And so we, the people, don't necessarily get what we should be getting out of it.
That's why Belize is ready for my leadership. It is time. It is past time. It is high time that we take a critical look to ensure that the pieces that are functioning, the pieces that are working, the pieces that have laid the foundation for our success, that we hold on to those pieces and we build on it. I think that tourism is a classic case of that. I'm very proud of the work that we did in tourism, that I did in tourism along with a lot of other people over a period of 25 years. It laid a solid foundation. And tourism, as we all know, it is the sector that continues to support our national economy. And when I became the Chief Executive Officer in the Ministry of Tourism, there was we developed a tourism master plan. And that development started before I got involved. But we didn't throw that away. We used it as the guide to determine what the priorities would be, and that work continues. So I think we can use tourism and the approach certainly I took with tourism. I played no politics with tourism when I was a director of tourism and when I was a CEO in the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Civil Aviation. I engaged the government and I engaged members of the opposition at that time, the People's United Party, so that we could find solutions that worked for the economy.
What then would be your position on one of the primary issues within Belize's tourism sector, which is a docking facility for cruise ships? It's been on the decline primarily because the ships are getting larger. There's a demand for coastal or inland
have a berthing facility.
Docking.
We need a berthing facility,
right.
indeed.
Primarily. So what would be your approach then, considering the playing field as it stands with all these developments on the way?
You know, there was a project that went to the National Assembly that received bipartisan support, that was under construction, and that was State Bank. Legislation was passed to enable that project to proceed. Now, you know, there's all kinds of litigation. The court just ruled in terms of government.
the case brought by Feinstein.
Right, government can acquire this land for the national purpose. So if we're acquiring it for the national purpose, let's use it for the national purpose. When I sat as the chairperson of the Cabinet Subcommittee on Investments, there were 3 projects that were brought before us. And we have to evaluate those projects on the merit of the projects. And that was the process that we were in. The elections were called, things turned over. Certainly, there has to be a solution. There has to be a final solution. In Jamaica, for example, the government is involved in terms of the berthing facility for cruise ships. They are an investor. So this is an opportunity for a private-public sector partnership, you know, so that we can find the solutions that we need to grow the cruise sector, or to grow the overnight sector, or to grow the agro-productive sector, to support and strengthen the health sector, you know, to address the issue of citizen security, of higher education, of entrepreneurship. These are things that I hear when I am on the ground from the Belizean people. These things are important. Infrastructure is important, yes. No one negates that. But there are real needs of a Belizean family that they want to be sure that they create better conditions for living for the next generation. It's not just about what we can do for ourselves, but what we can do to improve the conditions for living for those who are coming behind us.
What are you hearing on the ground when it comes to employment availability and the need for diversity in the employment sector or the field, when you think about the fact that there has been an emergence of call centers, and those numbers have gone from hundreds employed to thousands employed, and some argue that now our talents are being pigeonholed to this sector because it's what's available. Are you on board with the boom of the BPOs or call centers?
Certainly, it was part of the solution that we considered we considered as a UDP administration.
Okay.
We certainly supported the the BPO sector. There was a master plan for the development of the BPO sector certainly under my leadership at Beltrade. But when the BPO sector came to Belize, we're looking at customer service reps. There is a whole several layers to the BPO sector to deal with issues of, for example, healthcare solutions, to deal with IT solutions, to deal with educational solutions, to deal with insurance solutions, but we're not there yet. We haven't really developed the BPO sector beyond the initial entry, which is customer service related, troubleshooting related jobs. And also we have to look at the BPO sector. In my view, we're trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, or a square hole into a round peg. We have to create conditions for that sector to grow, and conditions that are fair to the Belizean worker, so that we can optimize what the Belizean worker can garner from working in that sector, in any kind of IT-related sector. Let's look at it. We have 16 days paid sick leave. You get 2 weeks, if not 3 weeks a year, paid vacation. We have about 20 national holidays a year. These things impact the productive sector. It impacts the service sector, because we have to follow the labor regulations as it is now, and we need to look at these things to ensure that we create the kind of environment where these sectors can not only take root but grow significantly, so it can benefit the working class.
So what we'll do at this point, Tracy, we'll take a quick commercial break, and when we return, we'll get into some hardcore politics. Good?
If you insist.
We insist.
All right, so we'll take a commercial break and we'll be right back.
My name is Hermine Vega. El Patio Grill has been using Belize Bank for over 25 years. We only use Belize Bank at our restaurant. That's why we were able to win this trip to Europe. I had never been to Europe. We found out it was Madrid, and we were excited, and we went to this football match. The teams reached before the game, and everybody was just outside, you know. You can't explain. The noise just roared like 3 blocks down the street, but when you got in there and you saw 70,000 people in there, that was amazing. I couldn't believe it was happening. I had to pinch myself to make sure it was real, you know, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, I'd say. My lucky plus one was my son. He's 18 years old, so he was really excited and he enjoyed it as well. He said it's his best trip ever, so it's a priceless experience that we got. Belize Bank has always been there for me. Whatever transactions or whatever I need to do, they're always there for me. I would recommend everybody to use Belize Bank. It's the oldest bank in our country, and they continue to do their best.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you've been waiting for. In this corner, we have the masters of limitless power and unbeatable connections. Pioneers of 4G LTE in Belize. It's the undefeated champion, Smart. And in the other corner, struggling to keep up, it's the other guy. Fight! Of getting blow after blow from a plan with the other guys? It's time to tap out and join the winning postpaid plan provider. Smart's postpaid plans are a total knockout to the competition, and they have once again powered up their postpaid plans. Sign up for one of Smart's boosted postpaid power plans today and experience the victory of superior service. Smart, bringing people together.
This is my first time here.
Hopefully it's my last.
My dear friends, here we are, all in our true colors. Your transfer papers, your key to the Mvule Kingdom.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I know.
Here are your clippers. Clippers.
Who's in? We are prefects. We run this place. So let's act like it.
Solomon, the head prefect, quick. Is my collar straight?
We'll be out of Mvule High before you can pronounce the word scholarship.
We have a mystery to solve. The only way we can make a difference is if we stick together.
When I'm head prefect, each and every student will have a voice.
You need to show that new squeak when fooling it.
I hate this school! Freedom to grow.
And welcome back. Continuing our conversation with Albert Era Representative Tracy Panton, we will at this point get into some serious political discussions with you. I know that an election is looming and there are a lot of questions to be had where preparations and where the state of the party and so forth is concerned. My initial question, we have not seen anything that resembles a manifesto just yet from your faction of the UDP. Where are we with that? What is it that you have in store for the voters and the populace where your mandate is concerned?
I thought I addressed a lot of that in our first segment. Okay. We are listening to the voices of the people, and what we have heard from the people are the things that matter the most. The cost of living, high inflation. How are we going to address the issue of high inflation? How are we going to address the issue of access to affordable and quality health care? How are we going to address the issue of housing? That's a big issue for us in Albert. Housing, adequate housing, affordable housing. We have the issue of tertiary education for our young people, that they, they can access here, or they can access in a way that does not put undue burden on their families. The issue of land continues to be a major issue for new landowners. And again, creating a system of government where the people of Belize have access. So it's not, if you're red, you want to get a piece of land, or if you're transferred to my constituency and you're prepared to vote for me, you're going to get a piece of land. It is that there are seamless platforms or seamless approaches where people can apply for government services and have access, whether it is the safety social net programs that the most vulnerable require, or whether it is to help us achieve our highest aspirations as a people and as a country. So we're working on our manifesto. It's not yet time to release the manifesto. I see that the party of government has said, no, it's Plan Belize 2.0. 2.0. When Plan Belize 1.0 has so much yet to achieve. There is no point in going to the Belizean population and making these empty promises, these grandiose plans that we all know when we read those manifestos, they cannot be achieved. People are concerned. People are concerned about the quality of life and how we can do that together by creating that enabling environment for business, for entrepreneurship, and for all the things that we discussed in the first segment.
In terms of the divide within the United Democratic Party, what would you say is the greatest challenge that the UDP must overcome ahead of or before the next general elections?
I think we have to continue to be respectful of the decision makers of the party. The decision makers of the party, and I will say this one final time, met on the 20th of October. And 70% of the decision makers of this party made a determination. They gave us a mandate. It was loud, it was clear, it was resounding. And the decision makers of this party recalled the former party leader. And they say we need to find a path forward. So the United Democratic Party has 31 candidates, legitimate candidates. From November 2022 to April of 2023, we had conventions in all 31 constituencies. In some cases, there were contested conventions. In other cases, there were endorsement conventions. But we selected 31 standard bearers, area representatives to represent us in the United Democratic Party. And we must respect that. Now, whether you support my leadership or whether you prefer the status quo is neither here nor there. From this point of view, they were legitimately endorsed or elected by the people of those constituencies, and they should be respected. What is happening is that because the former party leader cannot accept or respect the decision of the people, he's now foisting candidates in constituencies without any kind of consultation with the people who make that determination for the United Democratic Party.
We're going to get to that shortly, but what I want from you at this point, Tracy, is to get your response to what has been happening in at least 3 constituencies. One, Dr. Omar Figueroa has defected back to the Cheyenne Barrow faction. That is one. 2, we've seen where Ivan Puerto stepped down as the Corozal Bay standard bearer, and now we've seen Elodio Aragon Jr. stepping down as the Orange Walk East standard bearer. I presume that all 3 of these scenarios have some kind of an impact or ramification on the UDP's chances going forward.
No, I don't. UDP has 31 candidates and will have 31 candidates in the next general elections.
But would they have sufficient time to mount a campaign in their respective constituencies, given the fact that the election is pretty much here?
Omar will not have enough time to mount a campaign in Cayo North. He has been the standard bearer for 10 years. The other constituency you mentioned was?
There'll now be a scramble to replace Elodio in Orange Walk East, and I don't know if a candidate has been named for Corozal Bay just yet. And we're seeing that the election is pretty much here. It's only a
matter of weeks.
It is hopefully it's a matter of weeks. It's time for a reset, in my opinion, and we need to call the election. We encourage the Prime Minister to call the election because the people are tired, and they certainly it doesn't escape them the kind of corruption that we see in this administration, but that's another topic. The UDP will have 31 candidates in the next election. I believe there's a path to 16 for the United Democratic Party. But whether there's a path to 16 or not, there's a path and there's a need for a balance of power. There has to be checks and balances. And what has happened as a result of the former party leader not respecting the will of the people, and being dismissive of those who have built this party with their blood, sweat, and tears, is that the function of our opposition has been compromised. And we will continue, certainly those who form a part of this movement for democracy, sacrificing our democracy is too great a price. And I make no apologies for standing up for Belize's democracy, starting with the democracy of the United Democratic Party. The narrative is, oh, this is about a power struggle. That's not the story. The story is that we must do things in a way that is democratic, that is inclusive, that is participatory, to ensure that we can, as a United Democratic Party, bring the best solutions forward.
My math may not be the best, and I'll admit I'm not a math whiz, but you're saying that the UDP will have 31 candidates fielded for the upcoming generals. However, you're looking at your constituency where Jose Ukespot is also running. There's no distinction whether that is UDP or otherwise, so we'll take it as UDP. There is Gladys Paredes running in Collet. There's also no distinction there other than to say it's under UDP versus Patrick Fabre and Devin Daly.
They cannot be considered.
And several other areas where this is
They cannot be considered legitimate United Democratic Party candidates. They cannot. They did not follow the processes outlined in the constitution of the party, which we have always defended, and I've always stood up for the constitution of the United Democratic Party. They have gone through no process. These individuals have been foisted on the people in our constituencies. And let me tell you something. However this is determined, whoever uses the red or the white or the blue, people will know the difference by the quality of the candidate. And I say this, no disrespect to Mr. Oak. He ran in the 2015 general elections in Albert for the Green Party, and I supported him. I assisted him during the day because he had no infrastructure. So there's no ill will or disrespect for Mr. Oak. If you go to the people in Albert and you say, is Tracy UDP or Mr. Oak UDP? Who do you think the people of Albert will determine is the United Democratic Party's legitimate candidate? If you go to the people in Collet and you say to the people in Collet, is Patrick Fabre UDP or Gladys Paredes UDP? Who do you think the people in Collet will say is a legitimate UDP candidate? I'm not done. If you go to Belize Rural Central and you say to the people in Belize Rural Central, who is the legitimate candidate for UDP candidate for BRC? Is it Miss Bev or is it Mr. Almendaris? It's Miss Bev. Miss Bev's come from a lineage of United Democratic Party supporters.
Okay.
Her uncle, no, let me finish, was one of our national heroes.
Philip Golson.
Philip Golson. And you're going to say Miss Bev is not the legitimate UDP candidate in Belize Rural Central? Listen to me. The time has come where the Belizean people must choose the leader that they think can best represent them and to be their voice in the National Assembly.
So shoe on the other foot then. What do you say about Mesopotamia, where Lee Mark is challenging not only Larry Ellis, but also Cheyenne Barrow? So who would be the legitimate UDP in that particular scenario?
It's Lee Mark Chang. And the reason I can say that, because the members of the MESOP Executive Committee approached my leadership and the leadership team of this movement to say, we are not happy with the current leader, our current standard bearer. He has ignored us. He has been dismissive of us. He has caused a lot of hurt and harm in this constituency. And we're asking for you to select a new, help us to find a new standard bearer. And Lee Mark was approached, and there was consultation with the constituency, and there was consultation with the executive committee, and the executive committee has stood behind Lee Mark Chang.
So
Okay. Let me, no,
Uh-huh.
I want to make it clear.
Go right ahead.
Whether or not you agree that is the right process, where we have agreed in terms of those of us who are defending our democracy that we must have a change is in MESOP. The former party leader, and you know he loses all kinds of sleep when you refer to him as a former party leader. The former party leader was recalled in a convention on October 20th. He has single-handedly caused a lot of disruption in the United Democratic Party. He has failed to respect the constitution of the party. He has dismissed the procedures of this party, and he has been dismissive of the decision makers of this party. He is a problem and he must go. Period.
What do you make of Queen Square? Shane Williams was defeated by Godwin Haylock at a convention previously. Now that Godwin Haylock is aligned with the Alliance for Democracy faction, they bring back Shane as a candidate for Queen Square. How does that look? Because
does that make any sense to you?
Well, that's the question, right?
Does that make any sense to you? The people of Queen Square said resoundingly in that contested convention that we want Godwin Haylock to be our standard bearer in the next election. It went to the people, and the people made a determination. And because Godwin Haylock will not agree with your authoritarian approach, you're going to have him removed. Unacceptable. It is unacceptable, because as a leader, and I can't say this enough, you must listen to the voices of the people. And in Queen Square, the people of the United Democratic Party, the electorate in that constituency, have spoken.
Yeah.
So, you know, how can the former party leader say with any good conscience that he has this party at heart when he's going to dismiss those, or seek to dismiss, or purportedly expel those of us who were given a clear mandate by the people in our respective constituencies? Makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. And it is indicative of the fact that he does not care about bringing this party together, uniting this party, and finding a path forward for the United Democratic Party, but most importantly, finding a path forward for Belize.
And herein lies the basis of the confusion among voters, and I appreciate that you would say there's necessarily a confusion. However, with you and your team putting up 31 candidates, and Mr. Barrow coming and putting up another 31 candidates.
We have made
that's 60,
that's what I'm saying, my math isn't the best.
To me, that's 62 candidates. But the question...
No, I have to correct that. At no point did I say, or the leadership team that support me ever said, that we are feeling 31 new candidates.
You're saying the UDP has 31
we
candidates.
say the UDP has 31.
Okay, so
I am one of that 31. And those, Omar is part of that 31.
Okay. So what I'm getting at, Ms. Panton, is the confusion that it creates among the
you're
voting
helping to create the confusion. Respectfully,
I can't help but report on what is out there. I can't help on reporting on the fact that Mr. Barrow is fielding and continues to put candidates out there as yourself and your team.
It's going to be to his detriment.
At the end of the day, I'm talking here
to the former party leaders' detriment to be dismissive of the people, and this not only dismissive but disrespectful.
I'm here talking though about voters' confidence and what voters see and what goes through, what thinking process they're going through when ultimately they go and they elect a candidate for constituencies and to an extent the leader of the country. What do you think? What do you think voters will say on that day? What do you think voters will think? What are you hearing voters saying?
Well, what I can tell you what I'm hearing in Albert. Tracy for Albert again and again and again.
But outside of that, you're looking for
you
national
asked me a
leadership.
question. Let me answer the question. I believe that irrespective of this continuous approach by the former party leader to create this confusion where none needs to be, the people of these constituencies will look at their leaders, those who offer themselves to be of service, because that is the underlying thing, to be of service to the constituency, and they will choose the leader that they think can best represent them and to be their voice where they do not have a voice.
Do you not foresee this as a possible zero-sum game where you have two UDP candidates vying in one constituency, I say, let's look at Mesopotamia for argument's sake. You have Lee Mark, you have Shine, you have Larry. The fact that there's an infighting within the UDP, some people will go the Shine Barrow route with their vote, others will go the Lee Mark route with their vote, which would take away from the UDP and perhaps give, or arguably give rise to a new candidate taking shape, a new standard bearer, new area representative, new sitting parliamentarian in Larry Ellis. Just a hypothetical, but I'm saying, I'm drawing the illustration that it could be
Let's
as
deal with the
zero-sum.
hypothetical as you've presented it. The people of Mesop came to us and says it cannot be the former party leader. It cannot be him. We are tired of what is going on with the current administration. They're getting away with a blank check. There are no checks and balances as it is. And the person who is now tasked with the responsibility as the leader of the opposition in the House to ensure that those checks and balances are intact has been dismissing the bright minds of this party, the people with the most experience in this party. And they have said, we need a new standard bearer. And I am going to bet on the people every single time. Lee Mark Chang will come out victorious, and he will be the United Democratic Party's member in the House of Representatives, either in government or in opposition. There will be no confusion by the people in Mesop, because they have been clear to us that they need new leadership.
Two final questions from me, seeing as though we're running out of time here. One, did you follow or pay attention to the other side's press conference last week, where they discussed a number of national issues? And if so, did you agree with some of the points that were raised in terms of how the People's United Party administration is going about the governance of this country?
Yes, there's no, I do believe that the former party leader and the former chairman and the former vice chairman who were there made some valid points in terms of the unfettered power that now exists with this administration, and the fact that they have really taken a very high-handed approach in governing this country. We don't necessarily disagree on the policy issues. We disagree on how we build consensus and how we protect the democracy that we say we guard zealously. So, yes, people in this country will tell you, and you will notice there's almost, the silence is almost deafening from our social partners, because people are waiting for the bugle to be called, for election days to be summoned, and they are going to vote their conscience. I believe that because there are many who whisper. There's a whispering campaign going along. What is going on in this administration is completely unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And so I believe the people of this country will make their voices heard loudly and clearly whenever the elections are called. And yes, we are going to be ready to defend our seats and to defend Belize's democracy.
As my final question, my final question to the two-part. When can we expect then any kind of a national forum from you where you're discussing the issues of the day in much the same way that the other side of the UDP has?
When the time is right, when the elections are called, when we present not only our platform, but the candidates that is representing and stand firmly on the side of the people, there'll be an opportunity for us to share what that platform is. We are currently working on it. We're currently consulting with those persons who will help to inform what that platform is, and that's the people, so that we can present it in a way that is easy to understand, that's not lofty, that does not necessarily translate in fancy language, but that will address the needs of the people.
As one of the prominent female figures within the United Democratic Party, as my final question, is it your view that gender has a role to play in this internal struggle and rift for leadership?
I will answer that question this way. 51% of Belize's population are female, and we are grossly unrepresented in political leadership and having a meaningful seat at the table. The time has come where Belize is ready to accept a female Prime Minister. The time has come for women not to ask for a seat at the table, but to take a seat at the table. I will agree with you in this aspect. Women have to work 10 times harder. They have to be almost flawless. But we have the stamina, we have the resolve, we have the resilience, we have the intelligence, we have the strength, and we have the empathy and compassion to lead this country to its full potential. I have signed up for the job, and I will work as hard as I have always worked in this country. I've given 35 years of my life to nation building before entering the political arena. My work speaks for itself, and I believe I will be a formidable Prime Minister of Belize.
Honorable Tracy Panton, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for
this
having
morning.
me.
It's a pleasure having these conversations, but our time is up. Any final words, or you could speak directly into the camera?
Certainly, I want to first of all say a big shout out to the people of the Albert constituency, who I am most privileged to serve. It's humbling to be your servant. To the people of Belize, I want to make this appeal to you. Vote for the candidates that can best represent you, that can be your voice in the National Assembly, and those who will not only bring their smarts, but their heart to the issue, to the platform of governing this country. We need you to be part of this process. We need you to be included, to participate, so that Belize can arrive at her fullest potential. We're looking out for you whenever the next elections are called.
Excellent.
Well said.
All right, so what we're going to do right now is going to take a break, Isani, but before we do that...
Yes, we're going to be introducing a new segment into our Open Your Eyes lineup.
It's like a short segment.
Yes, it's called Pocket Plans with Renewal Arana. He's a businessman and an economic consultant. He's going to be talking to us about a range of different things in this series. We'll be looking at health and healthcare for the first one. So stay tuned, you don't want to miss that.
Yes, we're going to bring that up right now, actually.
Open your eyes, Belize. This is Renewal Arana from Arana Consultancies, and I'm here to ask you that all-important question. Did you know? In this segment of Pocket Plans, we tackle various economic and financial issues that could be important to you. This week, we're talking about health, healthcare, and the economy. Did you know that health statistics are some of the most important economic and development indicators in the world? Health, as defined by the World Health Organization, is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. As a matter of fact, health is a part of the Human Development Index, a measure created by the UNDP that is used to indicate a country's level of development. It's a composite measure of income, education, and health, and is widely used by donor agencies to determine whether developing countries are eligible for aid or not. While Belize is currently measured as a country of high human development, as judged by the HDI, it's a bit worrisome that our life expectancy at birth has declined over the recent years. In fact, it has been shown that health is strongly associated with countries' income per capita and household wealth. So what comes first, the proverbial chicken or the egg? Are citizens of the developed world healthier because they have money? Or does a healthy population bring about economic growth? While studies are inconclusive about the definitive relationship, one thing we do know is that being healthy allows for increased earning capabilities, more lifetime earnings, and a better quality of life. When we talk about health, we're referring to a good and balanced diet, preventative care, and a great healthcare system. While we are responsible for the first component, the last two, for most people, does come from our government in the form of our public clinics and hospitals. As a responsible population, we have to pay close attention to the policies affecting the quality of healthcare, including what's going on at medical facilities, medical training for our youths, pharmaceuticals, and other important topics, and make sure that we lobby our leaders to improve all of these factors. Over the past 3 fiscal years, government has invested over $133 million through the Ministry of Health and Wellness, out of a budget of about $1 billion. This equates to about 12.9% of that budget, and the intent is to spend more. So when we are healthy individuals, individuals benefit, households benefit, and the economy improves. We don't have to go too far back to understand how health can bring economies to their knees. We saw the impact of COVID in 2020, where a health crisis led to a reduction in trade, limited international travel, production bottlenecks, and extremely low productivity. The impact on household income in Belize was devastating, and that also came with increased debt. With limited repayment capacities, this could have led to a destabilization of the financial sector, if not for the timely response of the Central Bank of Belize. Fast forward to 2025, and there are different health issues that arise, with the WHO's disease outbreak news keeping us informed. This is a report on acute and rapidly developing public health risks and events with possible international implications. They've recently reported on acute respiratory disease issues facing countries in the Northern Hemisphere, including the HMPV issue, which is described as a COVID-like disease coming out of China, the deadly Marburg virus disease spreading in Tanzania, and dangerous viral illnesses popping up in Bolivia. While we do not expect the global economy to be shut down again, we do need to ensure that we remain healthy, so take the right steps to do so. Your family's economy is depending on it. Remember to tune in to Open Your Eyes next week when Arana Consultancies brings you another edition of Pocket Plans.
Light implementation plan is to replace the high-pressured sodium lights, better known as HPS lights. These HPS lights will be replaced by the LED lights. Therefore, LED street lights, advanced optics can fine-tune the distribution of lights, ensuring better coverage of the roads, roundabouts, parks, businesses, public area, homes, etc. The feedback have been great. We get positive feedback from the community when it comes to the improved brightness and light quality which LED provides by means of visibility and safety, especially at night.
Before the LED lights was installed, it was kind of dark, you know. Most of the time, they have to look and check. But with the LED lights now, you can see from far.
I like it because it's a nice bright light, because the customer feel much safer to come to the shop.
From the LED lights now that BL had put, it improved a lot. Well, the difference is that they look way far clearer.
Well, I must say thanks again to BL on this one, because actually our nice improvement also, it bring up the mahogany, because the mahogany is one of the active street in a Belize city, and also I live back at Gongolong, and when I come off work, it's just a bloom. Nice for me now when I go hold and I can see clearly.
The main objective this year is basically to change out 16,000 HPS lights. So the street light replacement will occur at every respective zone. For example, Central, Belize District, North, Orangewa, Corozal, West, Cayo District, South, Tancric District, and Toledo District. We have started some years back with the street light replacement project, and the 16,000 will account for the 100% that we need to complete on the distribution system.
Bringing you a brighter tomorrow.
February is all about Honda. Get special pricing and discounts on all Honda products. Enjoy up to 25% off select Honda products and 20% off Honda parts. Don't forget your B-Bucks whenever you make your purchase. There will also be a bike rally throughout the streets of Belize City, Blue Creek, and Spanish Lookout on February 8th, 15th, and 22nd respectively. All participants will get free oil change. Check out our Facebook page for more details. Love your Honda. It's all about deals and discounts on Honda products throughout the month of February. Only at Benquip Equipment Parts Service.
Energy powers our lives, and now we're powering a sustainable future together. This January 27th and February 3rd at 7:30 p.m., tune into the Energy Exchange Show, your guide to understanding Belize's journey towards sustainable energy. From solar power to electric mobility, learn how we're creating real solutions for everyday Belizeans. With topics like e-mobility and licensing regime, this show is designed to answer your questions about Belize's energy transition. Join us to see how we can all play a role in building a brighter, cleaner Belize.
Welcome back. This is our final conversation for this morning. We're jumping from women in politics to women in medicine.
Yes.
And we have joining us on set Miss Dr. Shana Pot, this is a general practitioner, as well as Dr. Natasha Gongora, who's an internal medicine physician and nephrologist.
Yes.
Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
morning,
Thank you
ladies.
for having us.
Good morning.
So we're basically, in this discussion, we're going to talk a bit about your work in the field as women and your contributions, as well as some of the challenges you face, right? So first of all, let's talk a bit about what inspired you both to get into the medical field and some of the challenges you faced along the way. We'll start with you, Dr. Pot.
Okay, well, what inspired me? I remember, and my mom can tell the stories, that ever since I was a little girl and anybody would ask me, I would always say that I wanted to be a doctor. And so growing up, I was still in primary school when I started volunteering with a group from the US that would come in and offer free health care, well, as much as they could have. And they still do that to this day. And in the villages in Corozal, where I'm from, you know, and seeing the conditions and the lack of healthcare resources during that time really opened my eyes to the need for it. And so I would say that since then I've been guided toward that path, and I haven't, you know, strayed away from it, and I knew exactly what I wanted.
How rewarding or fulfilling has it been for you now that you've actually been a part of the medical practice and you continue to do so?
Yes. So, like I was mentioning to you both before, you know, I've worked both in the private and public health sectors in Belize, and I can say that both of them have their challenges. I mean, you know, working in the public comes with its own challenges in terms of resources and dealing with different types of characters and, you know, and that sort of thing. But I would say that it's been very rewarding. I feel like I've helped a lot of people. When I was working in the public,
We did like a lot of outreach programs with BFLA during that time, a lot of educational programs, breast cancer awareness sessions and that sort of thing. And so just being able to educate these women, to get to know their bodies, to be able to inform them of things that culturally we were lacking, you know, and we're still lacking in a lot of education, but I can definitely say that we've made a lot of advancements over the years. So that was very rewarding. When I was working at Healthcare Partners, most of my time was there during the COVID pandemic, and so I was in the COVID unit along with Dr. Tanya Morhan, with Dr. Hidalgo, Dr. Arriaga, you know, and so that in its own was very challenging, a very difficult time for everybody all around, but it was definitely rewarding. I have patients to this day who still, you know, recognize and appreciate everything that we did for them during that time.
And for you, Dr. Gurungura, let me ask the same first question. What inspired you to get into the field? And perhaps you can also speak to a bit of how rewarding and fulfilling it has been for you since.
Yes, well, I think it's something similar to Dr. here. She mentioned that from very young she wanted to be a doctor, and similarly, coming out of high school, straight to med school in Guatemala, and that was difficult alone, just the Spanish, the English to Spanish, but it was done, and it was a group of us who started. It was mostly male students, colleagues who started along with us, and then, well, we all graduated and we all got our different degrees, and even in that specialty, it was difficult to even access that. It was, again, in Guatemala, my specialty in internal medicine. It was 50-50 women and men in that particularly residence program. And in Mexico, it was a bit more difficult, where we were 8 who were accepted to the nephrology program, and only 2 of us were female.
Wow. And for you, how rewarding has it been?
It has been very rewarding, actually. I'm the first female nephrologist here in Belize, and we've had 2 previous nephrologists. They were male.
Wow.
One has passed away, unfortunately. I didn't have the pleasure of meeting him. And another doctor, he is in the US.
Okay.
Currently, I'm the only Belizean nephrologist.
I gather that your services are highly sought after.
Yes, it is very difficult and challenging to see kidney disease rampant here in Belize. The #1 cause is diabetes, uncontrolled diabetes, and well, we have that issue here in Belize, and that's what we aim to control and see with all our physicians, male, female, especially our general practitioners, because they're the first line in the healthcare system.
Dr. Pot, we didn't get a chance to ask you what it is that you specialize in. If you'd give us some insight into that.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm a general practitioner, and after the COVID pandemic, I was a bit overwhelmed with that, and my son was only 3 during that time, and I lost a lot of time with him. So I decided to pursue a different path, and I left the hospital. I went to the US and I did a master's course in aesthetic medicine, and so that's what I'm doing now. So aesthetic medicine is practically still new here. A lot of people are still scared and
skeptical.
Taboo. Yes. But I do love what I'm doing, and again, back to your topic of women, and it does empower. I feel like giving that back to them. That as you start to age, a lot of people lose their they start losing that the word I'm looking for, confidence.
Yeah.
And because we do care about how we look, and so but for both male and women, there's a lot in the aesthetic medicine field in terms of, hair restoration, helping with skin and that sort of thing. And so just to boost that confidence and giving people back to themselves, and them appreciating what's staring back at them in the mirror, and knowing that they're walking into a room and they feel good about themselves. So
as women,
it's fulfilling.
As women who are at the forefront of the healthcare system, what would you say to other girls who would have the same dream as you guys did and bring that dream into fruition?
I was recently asked to give a talk at Gwen Lizarraga High School to some high schoolers there, of course. And, my first thing always is that I believe that if you're going to pursue the medical career, that you should try to get some experience before, because it is very demanding. And like I said with Doctora, I am sure that her years, what she does was basically a double specialty. Just getting to where I got in GP, that was a long career. And then in specializing and all of that. And so I believe that you have to have the passion for it. You have to recognize the challenges that comes with it before dabbling in it, because while I was studying, there were people that left the career. They decided to leave.
It's too demanding.
Yes, it's very demanding, and especially for us women who have other roles. Well, I'm not saying that the men don't play their roles within the family.
Fair enough.
But we know, the societal expectations and the demands from your family, and when you have children, and all of these things that are factors in our lives beside what is already a demanding career.
So that brings me to this question for you, Dr. Gongora. Given your specialties, how do you balance the demands that is upon you in the medical field? Because when patients need you, they need you. And I imagine they don't care if you have ice cream with friends or family or take a drink. How do you balance that demand in your work and your personal life?
Yes, well, it is challenging, but like Dr. said, we have to have vocation. It's the first thing you have to have as soon as you enter your first day of med school. They ask you why. That's the first question they ask. Why do you want to be a doctor? Some say they want to have money. Some say they want to have a big house or vacations. No. That's not it. Your vocation is the number one thing.
It's in the service of people, right? In the service of others. Right?
Yes, definitely.
Their health is first, and their quality of life. Being diagnosed with any kind of disease is challenging for the patient, so you have to be empathetic towards them. Balancing it is very challenging, and you will have to make many sacrifices. Anyone who wants to study medicine, male or female, but female especially. You will be away from home. You will have to make new friends. You will need to compromise certain things. So you have to have an open mind if you want to get into something like medicine. That goes for nursing, pharmacy, medicine. So it's many years ahead, but it's good to get as soon as high school. For example, in my case, I did not do sixth form. I went straight into it from high school.
No. How have you all seen medical field in Belize evolve to become more inclusive?
Well, I have seen it with our general practitioners. Before I left to go do nephrology, I did see more males, and then when I came back after COVID, we see
landscape change.
Yes. COVID changed medicine everywhere in the whole world. So it was challenging. I was in Mexico when it happened, and there the demand was much higher. And so the amount of patients we saw with kidney disease during COVID was incredible. So coming back home, then here to see female nurses, doctors, and everyone
working together. It was a breath of fresh air, I would imagine.
It was being able to come back home and be able to work with colleagues who went through COVID, and we're here, we're still here for our family and our friends and patients.
Where do you women see yourselves in the next 10 years or so in your respective professions? Let's start with you, Shauna.
Well, I have continued. Medicine is continuous. In whatever field you take, there's always advancements every day. There are new techniques, new material new diseases like we face with COVID, and so medicine is always evolving, so it's definitely something where you never stop learning. Like I already have program here in March. I'm going to Mexico City where I'm going to be doing some more training, and so it's like it's continuous. And so for me, being that now I'm on my own and I'm running my own business, is to build my business, and a big part of that for me has been and different from Doctora, because Doctora has a very high demand, in terms of her time, is I try to set my own schedule now, and so to be present, I want to be a present mother. I'm also a mother, and I only have one child. I only plan to have one child. So I definitely want to be as present as I can be. And so that is why I made that choice.
Mm-hmm. And yourself, Dr. Gongora?
Well, in 10 years' time, I would hopefully be working with a transplant program here in Belize.
Mm. Oh, interesting.
Hopefully sooner. Because at the end of the day, at least in my specialty, there is a cure for kidney disease, and that will be a kidney transplant.
Wow.
So that's where we aim
huge.
to. Yes.
Now, final question from me for both of you. Did you all have mentors along the way over you? And talk a bit about the importance of mentorship in this field.
So that I'm glad that you brought that up, because I feel like what she said about seeing more female physicians has definitely, we've been breaching that gap throughout the years, but when it comes to specializations, that is where we're still, there's definitely more male special doctors who specialize over females, and especially in certain fields such as surgery and that sort of thing. So I am truly, I'm happy to have people like Doctora here who decided to take that career path, so that the upcoming generation, they will have that, they will have more mentorship, they will have these people present, or more female physicians who they can come to and who can mentor and guide them if they so choose that path. Because I believe that the generation before us, especially, they probably had it really hard. Historically, women were even omitted completely, not allowed to be in these. They weren't allowed to choose these, to take even have a career. Okay. So we've definitely been set back, and I am happy to see that we're breaching that gap. But like I say, and definitely, like for example, like for her specialization, there's hardly any woman in that field. She mentioned she's the only one here in Belize, and you will see a lot of female pediatricians, and more of that 9-to-5 job than something as demanding as being called out for emergency surgery or that sort of thing, where it is believed that the men possess more strength and decisiveness and that sort of thing. And so
your thoughts at the Gongora on mentorship?
Well, yes, in med school we had the female and male professors. I mean, we appreciated both of them, and honestly, when you get into the residency program, you could see each other as colleagues. Everyone, you work together. They don't necessarily have to be above you or be your chief internal medicine specialist and so on. Your own colleagues, your same year, you work together. You try to be you try to collaborate with each other as best as possible, because at the end of the day, the patient is the goal now, the patient's health. So my mentorship, at least in Mexico, was very fulfilling, because I had a lot of female nephrologists there. We even have a group WhatsApp of nephrology in Mexico, female girl nephrologists. So I am still part of that, and we still have that, how do you say in English? Compañerismo. There's a
companionship or
with the
partnership.
Female, because we all go through different difficulties. Everyone in their own country, everyone in their own hospital, they go through hardships. Correct. With other specialists, others who still, when you come back from studying, they look at you and say, well, who are you to come in? And when you come in with your curriculum, then that's when they start to recognize that. But it's very difficult for them to just accept it in the beginning. But once they do, then we work together. That's the aim, to work together. It's a multidisciplinary management that we should give all patients. Some doctors still have the mental and the chip that they can handle everything on their own or by themselves. They don't have to. They have specialists, they have cardiologists, we have nephrologists,
Correct.
we have statisticians. I will not put Botox on a patient when I know doctor I can do that.
Can do that, correct.
So I will not go into a specialty that I know is out of my field.
Interesting.
So
there's no way that we can specialize here in our country, that we can continue living our lives and working and maintaining our families without having to leave again for another long period of time. So that is definitely one of the setbacks as to why we're not seeing that as well, you know.
Excellent. Well, we're out of time, Dr. Potter and Dr. Gongora, but we do appreciate both of you coming in and sharing your insights and telling us, giving us a bit of look into the world of medicine from your perspectives. It's quite an excellent conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
They're welcome. With that, we're going to take a final break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap this morning's show up. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
And I'm a teacher, and I bank with Belize Bank Independence Branch. What I enjoy is the safety features that the app offers. I have a sense of not having to worry or be concerned about somebody finding my password and username to sign in the application because of the use of the one-time password. And another feature that I love, that I use the most, is how the app synchronizes with my fingerprint on my device. I enjoy the rapid and easy, seamless process to apply for loans through the Belize Bank, and I don't have to be having too much back and forth to visit or take time to visit the bank. They also start to offer the online applications through the app for loan applications, which I believe is very neat. I would definitely recommend Belize Bank to other teachers because one of all the features and advantages that the app offer, with these online that Belize Bank offered, is basically everything that you can do in the palm of your hand. So I would definitely recommend the bank to other teachers.
The Social Security Board, in collaboration with the Labor Department, takes this opportunity to remind insured persons of the requirements for compensation when on sick leave. Any employee who has worked with an employer for at least 2 months is entitled to 16 working days of sick leave with full pay every year. This is how it works. Upon approval of a sickness or injury benefit claim by SSD, 80% of the employee's weekly insurable earnings is paid as a Social Security benefit, and the difference in the employee's salary is paid by the employer. This is to ensure that the employee does not suffer any loss of wages when ill. After 16 days, compensation for sick leave is paid as a Social Security benefit only. Some conditions apply. This message is brought to you by the Social Security Board and the Labor Department. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you've been waiting for. In this corner, we have the masters of limitless power and unbeatable connection. Pioneers of 4G LTE in Belize. It's the undefeated champion, Smart. And in the other corner, struggling to keep up, it's the other guy. Fight! Tired of getting blow after blow from a plan with the other guys? It's time to tap out and join the winning postpaid plan provider. Smart's postpaid plans are a total knockout to the competition, and they have once again powered up their postpaid plans. Sign up for one of Smart's boosted postpaid power plans today and experience the victory of superior service. Smart, bringing people together.
Welcome back. And so that does it for our show this morning. It's Monday, February 3rd, the start of the week. We want to thank you all for joining us this morning for the excellent conversations that we had. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, any birthday shout outs, you can always drop us a line at openyoureyes@channel5belize.com. That's our email. You could also catch us on Facebook live each and every single weekday morning at Open Your Eyes BZ. And for all the highlights and behind the scenes reels, you could head on over to OYE Belize on Instagram for all of that information. And then of course we have a new number that we have to continuously familiarize ourselves with, and that's 675-2555. You could send us a WhatsApp message to raise your thoughts, questions, concerns, or even to book a segment. You can do it via the WhatsApp number. But essentially that does it for our show this morning. Tell our viewers you could feel free to join us tomorrow morning, February 4th, when you open your eyes
to start your morning right.
But until then, be sure to keep your eyes, your minds, and of course
your hearts open.
Belize, stay safe. See you tomorrow. God bless. Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together.